Good afternoon and welcome back to Fight Sports Uncovered, exclusively here on Love World Sat with me, your host Mark Joubert, and it's Friday the 13th, and hopefully that's not going to prove too ominous for all of those guys that are on tonight's Bellator card. And in tonight's show, probably brought to you by Bare Knuckle, we're going to unpack that Bellator card. We're also going to talk about the big UFC fight night that's coming up this weekend. Also talk that WBO featherweight title fight. And then we build up to the first one of the year. Yes, it's EFC 84. And talking EFC 84, I probably have to introduce you to my guest, arguably the most important man in African MMA.
Wow.
He's sitting right alongside me. It's the VP of Talent. And for those of you that aren't too familiar with acronyms, VP referring to Vice President of Talent, it's Graeme Cartmell. Graeme, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And I think
quite a nice introduction, Mark. I really like it. The most important man. Yeah, cool.
Thanks so much for hosting us here at the Performance Institute.
Pleasure.
Very empty Performance Institute because the cage is in Pretoria.
It's a bit different. Somebody wanted to come and train with me yesterday, and I said, no, just hold until next week. Hex will be back. And it's vibe here, but I mean, we're still quite a vibe here. It's quite a lot of fun to come here and train and do the things. Early morning's really, really busy, so.
But it shows you how dominant that cage is. When you walk in here, it almost looks now like a warehouse again.
Yeah.
And with that cage, it looks full.
It's a centerpiece. I mean, everybody wants to train here because they get the opportunity to train when no one else can. I mean, when are you going to get to step inside a proper hexagon, you know, proper competition spec hex? Never, unless you come here.
So, two questions, topical questions, if I may. Obviously, the big one Friday night.
Yes.
A week ago, we witnessed history being made in American mixed martial arts, with Invicta showcasing the very first open scoring or real-time scoring. Are you a fan at all?
A huge fan, and I think for the most part, the way that we are going to incorporate it into EFC, because we will incorporate it, for the event we're having 14th March, it won't be a situation where we can burst it onto the screens, but I've spoken to the officials and said, can we get those results in between each round and then post that out to our fan base on Twitter? So it's kind of a message to the fans, efcworldwide.com. Go and look at our Twitter page, go look at everything's EFC Worldwide. So go look at our Twitter page, and our communications manager will be posting the rounds.
Wow. So you're launching that here in Africa for the very first time now?
We're going to launch it, and then what I will have is, when we do our April event, I'll have that locked down in terms of the whole graphics and the beautiful kind of show in between rounds. But right now, it's kind of rudimentary, but it still gives opportunity for people to see what's going on in between rounds and maybe throw some weight towards the judges with either a boo or a yay if they believe that they're going the right way or the wrong way, you know.
So fantastic for the viewers out there. History going to be made this coming weekend at EFC 84 with our first pilot here in Africa of open or real-time scoring. So cannot wait to be cage side to see that in action. The other topical question, Graeme, that I want to ask you is COVID-19. Now, we've seen a lot of stuff in the press, a lot of it sort of hype media stuff, but specifically relating to sports, we've seen a lot of major events being postponed, some instances being cancelled, off the back of one championship postponing, off their first event being behind closed doors, now postponing event, hearing that Aries have postponed their second event. EFC's take on COVID-19 as now?
I'm not surprised that ONE FC have had to do that, you know, just based on their location. Aries, I think, I don't know why they've done it, to be honest with you.
It's out of Belgium, yeah, exactly.
It makes no sense. It's obviously, maybe they didn't have a card done in time, or it's an easy way for them to save some cash. From our perspective, I would love to do events in the EFC PI and do a studio-like feel. I was a big fan of Art of War when I was in Thailand as a kid in 2007, training out there with Darren. He fought in Art of War. That's exactly how they set it up. That was like 12 years ago. They were still so advanced that they were doing it in the studio. Why not? It's clean, it's beautiful. But the way we're watching the media and we're watching things very closely, we're looking at it from kind of like it's a very fine line. We've got to be very careful, and obviously if we thought that there was a massive risk here, we'd be absolutely canning it and doing it at the PI. but we feel that from our perspective, looks like the spread hasn't been as aggressive as has been in Asia and even Australia and even in Italy. So we think we'll be fine, you know. So yeah, we're going to continue with the event. We're going to do our thing, and people just need to be careful. And if you don't want to put yourself in that situation, don't come. But ultimately, you know, I think people know enough about their own sort of like how they handle their hygiene that they'll be fine.
Absolutely sound advice from the Vice President of Talent here at EFC. With that advice, let's dive straight into this weekend's top PunchyKicky action, and we're going to kick off with tonight's card, Bellator 241. And the headliner there is not only a featherweight title fight, but it also is the quarterfinals for that Bellator featherweight tournament. And we see as the headline Patricia Pitbull up against Pedro Carvalho. That's the first one. And the co-main event is another one of those featherweight tournament bouts. It sees Daniel Vitchell up against Emmanuel Sanchez. Graeme, at the end of the day, you're seeing a situation where that main event, so much on the line for Patricia Pitbull. If he loses, he's out of the tournament and he loses his belt.
No, man. I mean, look, like...
Not that I'm saying he's going to win it.
Tournaments are great. Yeah. Tournaments are phenomenal. I think Patricia's, I think he's the real deal, man. I really, really, really like him. I really like him. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the head coach at Jose De Rocha's, or he still is the head coach, and has led the way there. And he's a thriller, man. He's a finisher. I've looked at his fights, and if I know this conversation because I've had a conversation with the bookies about this exact card, and I was heavily favoured towards Patricia, and I still am. I think he's going to take it. I
think the big thing there is Patricia specifically wants Carvalho because he's linked to SBG,
100%.
and that would be a lovely notch to have on his belt.
Yeah, and you can't knock Pedro. I think he's a phenomenal athlete, but there's something about years under your belt, fights under your belt, that bodes well with me knowing exactly like where you're coming from. If you're a 10-0 and you're going up against a guy who's got 30 fights and it's a mixed bag like what he's got 30-4
versus an 11-3, yeah.
It's a very different situation because the thing is an unknown quantity, like somebody who's like a Lal Karam is an unknown quantity. You can sort of gauge how he is, but there's pressure systems he's never been under that Pitbull has been under, and that's why I think. And he also seems to be on that wicket, Patricia. I'm not sure. He's running like a 4-fight winning streak, or he's running quite a
he's
run
good
at the moment.
Absolutely.
And that momentum is hard to quell. You know, that's juggernaut stuff. You know, once you get over 3 and you start really gaining momentum, it's hard to beat. And that is a lesson for anything. I mean, I'm talking to any MMA. I've seen it throughout the years. Once guys get in a momentum, it's almost like it's got nothing to do with their ability. It's their ability is finally caught up, or their confidence is finally caught up with their ability. And then you see spectacular moments when they fight.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
For the viewers out there looking at the rest of that card, some notable fighters on the rest of that card.
Mitchell, by the way.
Yes.
I think he's a, you know, he's like a Martin van Staden, you know. It's these guys that have got super high records, big records, and they've maybe come into the game a little bit later in their lives and really find their stride later on, and now they're really being recognized. Because it's, as a matchmaker, I look at that record and that age and I go, what can we do with this? But then you put him in a Grand Prix and he starts kicking ass and you're like, okay, you know, he gets a chance to shine. Yeah. You know, otherwise, I mean, most promotions just want these awesome up-and-comers. They don't want the war horses, you know.
The tough guys that have been there.
But that's the one you watch out.
Mitchell, absolutely.
You know.
And obviously the winner of those two face each other in the semi-finals. As I was saying earlier, some other notable fighters on that card. We're looking at Paul Daly, Matt Mitrione, and Anatoly Tokov. Great fighters, yeah.
Tokov is crazy good. Tokov is so tough. Yeah. I think he's somebody, and I mean, I'm maybe being a little bit biased here, but I think Russian fighters simply just like, they've got an edge to them because they're just so damn tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so yeah, I favor him. Mitrione, I love watching him. There's Ronnie Marks. He's a seriously big boy. He's competed at light heavyweight, which I can't believe. But I'm glad they're doing this heavyweight. The female fights are good. Yeah, I mean, they're putting on good fights, man. Like Jude is a good mate of mine at Bellator. I think this is an American. They're doing this in the States, right? Yeah. yeah, I've been chatting to him about the European circuit, and I mean, I like what Bellator are doing. They've completely changed their model. They've got a big TV deal. They're starting to make money now, finally, after tanking for like 10, 15 years, and now they're making cash. So the fact that they can put on really shit-hot fights, especially in Europe, sorry for swearing, they can put on really good fights, especially in Europe. They need it. People need that type of traction and to be able to watch fights.
Looking at the rest of what's taking place this weekend, we look back at UFC 170, headline there, Kevin Lee versus Charles Oliveira. Both of them coming off well, obviously Lee coming off that head kick knockout against Gregor Gillespie. And yeah, very, very big fight there, particularly if we look at the fact that Charles Oliveira is the all-time leader in submission wins. That's a massive.
You know what? I know this isn't a prediction show. It's more of a like let's just discuss the card. But you've got to look at the momentum. Same thing. Kevin Lee's got a first round. He just won first round head kick. Amazing. But I mean, you know, it's the same with Aziashu Chitambo, straight up the pipe with Billy Oosthuizen, and then goes into his next fight and doesn't really kind of, you know, shine, because that an easy knock, or I'm not saying easy, you know, once in a lifetime knockout doesn't dictate your career, and Lee was on a loss before that, you know, so Oliveira is running like a 6-fight winning streak, and a grappling bout, and all he needs to do is close the gap, take him to the deck, and just sleep him. But at the same time, you know, it's the stage. Big match temperament and stage control is what you want. It's like why people act, why people get into everything. You don't just become a fighter because you like fighting. If that was the case, you could do it in here and no one would ever see you. But you actually get into acting or into MMA because you know you're on a big stage, you're in front of thousands of people and you want to act up to that. So I think, yeah, so that's where guys like Lee could really goad Oliveira into a distance striking match and actually look for the gaps and open. It's been done before, you know.
The other big fight is that WBO featherweight strap on the line at Madison Square Gardens. We see undefeated Shaka Stevenson up against challenger Miguel Mariaga. I mean, Miguel Mariaga has got a serious amount of pedigree, especially look at the fact that he's a 3-time world title challenger. That's huge. Yeah. And he's got massive knockout ability. I mean, we look at that record, 25 knockouts from 29 wins. That's huge.
In boxing, I'm not the biggest pundit. I did it as a kid and I love it now, and I still am an avid supporter. But I got to say, if you once you get past the lower, once you get into the lower weight categories and you start seeing a high level of knockouts, you really have to take notice of the guys. The Garcia kids, same thing. You know, they're small guys and they generate power. And they do it in a way that their timing is exceptional. I mean, boxing timing, that's what it's all about. I mean, once you can hit the button and you can do it successfully, that's a hard art to break. You know what breaks that is time. Like, you don't all of a sudden not become a knockout artist. You know, you've got to obviously be weathered and not have the same agility and speed. So I think he's young, he's dynamic, and he should be able to put in more punches on the night. Absolutely. You know, so I think it's a really cool fight to be watching.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's all about this weekend's EFC 84. We'll be back right after this.
Get faith-inspiring testimonies for living in divine health from the Healing School magazine. It's free of charge and easy to download. Just log on to www.enterthehealingschool.org/magazine. Fill in your name and email address. Download now.
Welcome back to Fight Sports Uncovered, proudly brought to you by Bare Knuckle. And as we said at the beginning of the break, when we come back, it's all about the hype for this weekend, here locally anyway, EFC 84. And for those of you that missed the first half of the show, I'm sitting here with the VP of Talent for EFC, Graeme Cartmell. And Graeme, first event of the year taking place this weekend at Sun Arena in Pretoria. And you've been responsible for putting this card together. Yeah. Let's unpack some of what's happening. And I think first off, 2 debutants on the card. Originally, they were slated to fight each other late last year. Injury prevented that. So we got Bandu and JT Buerta on the card. Yes. Exciting prospects.
But they're not fighting each other. You're talking about the fact that they are actually,
they were going to fight each other late last year.
Because I wanted JT to fight Bandu now, Diego, and they just weren't having it at CIT. And I understand why. I mean, Diego was hard to match as an amateur. I signed him 6 months ago, and I've been like rifling through opponents. And it's funny because the Cats camp, like his whole camp, like, I'll take any fight, just whoever. Yeah, great prospects. I mean, what's really cool about somebody like Diego is you have to be in front of him to really know what he's about. I mean, he's a good-looking, athletic, very tall, you know, like really well-built dude. These big, like thick, keloided scars on his face. Like he looks like an
looks mean.
Killer.
Yeah,
he looks serious. And his striking is good. He's got a good boxing pedigree. He's got range on him, and he's athletic. So I think it's going to be a difficult fight for anyone. Mark Cumber's got a hell of a fight on his hands.
Only question for me, I saw him at amateurs and his gas tank, major problem.
Yeah.
So for me, that's going to be the interesting piece for me to watch is that third round. Can Cumber take him to that third round? I mean, Cumber, we look at him, he's coming off that loss to Dallas Jacoby.
Sure.
But has Diego Bandu worked on that gas tank? Because it was very, very noticeable in that last amateur fight that I saw.
I don't know if he's worked on it. He's had long enough time to. I hope he has, because it's not just about gas, it's about BMT, it's about being under the big lights, big feel of a big event. But I think he's going to be able to weather enough if Cumber fights the way he did against Dallas. You know, Cumber wasn't impressive in his last fight. I'd seen him come back and forth, and he's exciting to watch, and he's a bit of a brawler, overhand right, good jiu-jitsu that we never see, and he looks the part, he's strong, he's also well built. And I was really left wanting in his last fight with Dallas. I felt like I saw a side of him that I didn't like, which was like, he didn't want to be there.
Yeah, and that was the verbal submission.
Yeah, and that happening against Diego, I think Diego will freaking capitalize on that. So I'm not saying that Diego's got it in the bag, because Cumber can pull it out of the bag at any stage. But I like Diego for this fight. I think he's going to be a strong competitor for the middleweight division. Looking
at JT Buerta, Roy Lekolo, that's also an interesting matchup.
Very interesting, because we don't know what to expect. It's this unknown quantity thing again. You know, JT is. I sat with him at the media day, and I got a real feel for him for the first time. We actually only met at the media day for the first time, and I shook his hand. I was like, "Cool, what you about?" Started having a conversation. He's super confident, and I got that feeling of the CRT grooming. You know, I know he's had quite a good amateur career. I think that's what we're going to see out of this guy. He's going to try and clinch up, work his magic, try and get Roy to the ground. But Roy took, who did he take 3 rounds in his last fight? He had a 3-round war in his last fight now, Kulukani Klonga.
Decision one, yeah.
Super impressive. And you could see that he'd been training with a legit camp finally, because he's only boxing, and now he's training with Penna. And I saw those little nuances of being able to move in certain directions and get out of certain things. So I do think that's going to be a war. It's going to be a real war. I don't know if Diego and Cumber are so technical. That's going to be a scrap, fun scrap to watch. But I think we're going to see a proper war from JT.
So looking at the start of the card, the opening of the card, we've got Swart versus Machava, and also the very next fight we've got that Smith versus Hume. Now in both of those situations, all of those athletes are yet to notch up their very first professional win. So for someone on the night, from a matchmaking point of view, it's a matchmaker's dream, because someone here walks away with their first professional win.
Exactly, and also Colin Hume had a very tough fight in his last fight. I think he fought like almost 2 years ago. He had quite a tough one, and he'd been touted as this like awesome amateur. Everybody was expecting magic, and he failed to pull the trigger. It wasn't that he was bad, it was that we know he's good and we didn't see him do anything with that ability. So he was sluggish, he was slow, he looked like he was so docile that he wasn't in the fight. You know, and he got taken out for it, unfortunately. Smith has never failed to amuse me when he walks down to the cage, gets into the hexagon, does his thing. I see him jacked up on some Mountain Dew or whatever he's been drinking backstage, and he's excited and he wants to go crazy. It's just, he's a smotherer. He's a brawling smotherer, and he's there to have fun and maybe get a win. And I don't know if he's got the skill set, but he certainly has it like Burley. I'm going to fight the hell out of this guy You know, either get knocked out or knock someone out type attitude, which is great. And Donnie and Orlando. Orlando's so big. He's a strong physical dude. I don't know if he's too small and he's not got that strength dynamic to outpower Machaba, but Machaba might just burn himself out.
The question is, can Donnie keep him going for long enough to burn himself out?
That's it. Now he's moved to his new camp, or his old camp, which is Agog Aziashu's camp. So his striking's going to be on point. Is that what he needs? I would rather spend the last 3 months wrestling.
Taking the ground game.
Get the ground game so that I can negate anything serious and really tie somebody up and then use my submissions to quell that. But that's a weird story. I do think Machaba's going to be the stronger one and Donnie's going to be the more technical. Yeah.
Next big fight for me, I think, is the return of Billy Westhuizen coming off that 3-fight skid. I mean, started off like a house on fire.
And he fought, and let me tell you, he knocked out. He was on a 3-fight tear of knocking guys out.
In the first round?
In the first round, and then he fought higher level guys, and they worked out his game, and it's like game plan over like these big overhand rights, and hey, what do we say? I mean, I really like the kid, and I want to see him do well, and Ali, I think, is a good opponent.
Yeah.
And having them here when we did the media day,
that was entertaining.
Giving him the pillow, saying I'm going to knock you out. Whether it's a ploy, I don't know. You know, a lot of the guys nowadays, even Timber did it. He's like, I'm going to knock him out in the first. You're not going to try and knock him out. He's going to try and drag this thing to the deepest waters he can. No, you know that's kind of like here's what I'm doing, really.
Bit of mental exercises.
A bit of mental fight there, which is good. And I think Billy did that with Ali. Ali's look. Unfortunately, Ali's a veteran. He got into this game later on in life, and it means that he hasn't really been able to groom himself in certain areas, which means he's coming into a guy like Billy, who has got a seriously sharp right hand. And I've seen Ali's boxing style. It's unorthodox, it's all over the place. He's got a jits game from Vickers. Didn't really get to show that in his last fight because Stefan De La Rey picked him off and wanted to keep it standing, and he didn't really impress me, but I like him. Like personally wise and wanting him to go far, I really like him. But I think Billy should have the distance and the reach on him in that fight.
Next up, Cameron Simon. Hopefully we're going to see him build on a very, very impressive debut. That was back, the last event of last year, EFC 83.
Yeah. I was thinking, oh man, are we throwing Zweli to the wolves here? And then I saw Zweli's fights. His last fight against Ruvan de Beer was pretty damn impressive.
Yep.
And it actually gave me like, oh my God, this is going to be a hell of a fight for Cameron. Cameron's on the rise.
Coming out of a good camp.
Coming out of a fantastic camp. Drickus has said to me, Graeme, you know, and it's so true. It's beautiful that, you know, it's a testament. We've been doing this for so damn long that we know we can validate the stories, and we're part of those stories when they happened. When Drickus was 18 years old or 17 and coming into my offices when we were out in Bryanston, and we had these lavish, beautiful offices. You used to walk in and be like, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to be part of EFC. Cool. Have a long conversation with him. And I'm like, how old are you? I'm 18. He's built like a man. Cameron's different. Cameron's built like a boy. He's still young. He's still developing. Drickus was developed at 18 and strong and could physically outpower guys. So that's why we have to match Cameron. If we want to keep him interested and keep him excited, match him adequately at a weight-wise and strength-wise. Like Zweli's a man, but he's also a very small frame.
Small built, yeah. Correct.
So it's a better fit size-wise, strength-wise, and I think that's going to be it's a sleeper fight. That's one of those ones that you're like, Cameron's so good. We haven't seen, amateurs is different, buddy, and we put him high up on the card. It's going to be an interesting fight.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah. The other big interesting fight is the prelim headliner. Yeah. Rod Kenner up against the returning Cole Henning. Yeah. Was this a fight that Cole actually asked for? I get the sense?
Yes. Well, so I mentioned guys, and he was like, I'll take him. I was like, really? Invite Rod? He's like, yeah, we've got history. And when I mentioned it to Rod, you know, he just like chuckles.
Yeah, they got big history because they fought each other at amateurs and Rod knocked him out.
Exactly, and I think that's the funny thing. If we did this again now and Cole hadn't had a 4-year break, I'd say Cole's the one to watch out for. But because of that 4-year break with Sades, banning him for freaking supplements and I saw the supplement, and I was like sitting in the Said's hearing, looking at this whole thing unfold, and I was just like, they are killing this kid's career. Like looking back on it now, I'm so angry that we couldn't do anything, that our hands were tied. Like, how can you ban somebody for 4 years for taking a pre-workout? You know, I get it, yeah, he's advantage, but really?
But was it an advantage? He lost that last fight.
Really? It killed me. Anyway, so going back, Cole is a seriously high-level talent. Is that going to sit in the back of his mind that he got knocked out by Kenyan amateurs like 8 years ago? It was ages ago. Or is he like, you know what, new MMA career, let's go and kick butt? I think the latter. I think he's going to come in and really
I think
make
this is arguably the
Yeah.
fight of the prelims for me.
For sure. And Kenan never puts on a bad performance. He's always out there to slug away and do his thing. And he's on a run at the moment, and it's exciting for him. He'll be cool.
Looking at that main card incredibly exciting. We're starting off with Martin de Beer versus Manangela. Ruvan de Beer. He's on a 3-fight win streak at the moment. Started off, I mean, you look at that first fight against JP Base. You look at what he looks like now, fundamentally different athlete.
Yeah, and I got to say, now, you mentioning JP, it kind of stands testament. A lot of guys will say, oh, you guys are always giving easy fights. We never give easy fights. We threw him straight to the wolves.
Correct.
You know, and he's performed so well. He's on a tear. Sindili, first time from 66 to 61, he's making a big cut. He's looking amazing, looking sharp. Could be a fight of the night, right?
That's a big one. Then obviously Makishi versus Kayambala. Okay, Makishi undefeated in his first 3.
Took a break for quite a while now. He's back in the mix. August Kayambala is a hell of an athlete. You know what amazes me about Kayambala and why I love watching August is when you watch him in the hexagon, he's so intense. He's almost like channeling all his ancestors into those fists, and like he's like lifting his pants. I could see him now, just like about to attack Makishi, and Makishi's also like he's got his own. They are characters in a video game. Like, they are amazing to watch and super exciting.
Absolutely.
Well. Yeah, so that's going to be a hell of a fight and really dictates how the lightweight division is going to unfold going forward, for sure.
And then the anomaly fight for me is the next one, Neil du Plessis up against Stefan Pretorius.
Yeah.
You know, was it a conversation? Was it a big sort of debate to get Neil to move up to light heavy?
No, not really. I mean, the fight was accepted at 84 kilograms. And then what happened is Neil phoned me, Hini, the manager, said, listen, Graeme, I've got a problem here. Please can we drop this to or make it a light heavyweight fight? So I chatted to Steph, and they finally agreed. And they were chilled about it. So I think they really just want to fight each other and have a cool fight, which is going to be good.
It's going to be a very interesting matchup, especially with Neil coming off that lightning fast submission in his last outing. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And then I think for me, the main card fight is Kanyeba versus Botha. I mean, I'm expecting that to be an absolute stand-up war. I mean, I know at the media day, Kanyeba was just talking about the fact that this is just to keep him going while he gets that potential shot at the title.
He is overlooking, and he's overlooking Pierre so badly, and that's the biggest mistake. Dude, that kid, let me tell you, Pierre's founder is rejuvenated. There's something that's happened in his life, in his career, and he said, you know what? I'm going in, all or nothing. I'm in, my whole hand's in. Big overhand rights, big knockouts. Tumisang Madibe laid out, didn't fully lay them out. It wasn't controversial.
Rudy Roots was an absolute layout.
Roots was a layout. It was a great fight. So I think Pierre's a one to watch. Going into that fight is like an early trying to finish the fight quickly. And he said it's just punches and bunches, man. That guy, he wears you out, he wears you down, and he's so active that he's hard to beat. You know what I mean?
But also look at who he's beaten. You've got Delafield, you've got Coxon, you've got Bagatine, and you've got Pritchard.
And let me just give you a little politics situation here. And he said why he hasn't got a title shot is prior to that, he wasn't beating the guys that were big names for us. So he wasn't hugely impressed. All of a sudden he went on a run and started feeding him good guys. And in that time, I already had title fight matched up. So
then we come to the main event. Garimba versus Karam, welterweight strap on the line. Yeah. You mentioned earlier enough in the show that Lyle Karam, a bit of an unknown. He's been out of the game, come back for 2 fights. He saw off Stefan Pretorius with that late sort of replacement. Yes. He's fought a very comfortable fight in Australia at AFC. Garimba has been out there talking about him being the greatest welterweight and wanting to be the greatest welterweight in the world.
Sure.
Very interesting matchup. Question for you, is this the fight that Garimba wanted in terms of particularly pointing out Karam?
Not stylistically. He wanted him because he was 6-0. He wanted a guy that was undefeated, and I thought it would be the matchup that would bode well. And when you look at it style, and that's how matchups happen at the title arena. You don't actually worry so much about the contenders, what he's done or whatever. If it makes sense, it makes sense. And Lyle made huge sense. On the fight itself, I think that Temba needs to keep his distance, because Lyle's got big punches. Yes, he's been tagged himself. Temba got dropped by Leon, and he got dropped by Jose. So I think the chins are going to both be tested in this fight. The wrestling, it's going to come down to wrestling, it's going to come down to submissions, and it's going to come down to whoever can last the longest. And that's why we were worried about Lyle. But different circumstance.
Big question for me is looking at what happens after this in that welterweight division. Whoever wins this, I look at what's on the roster there. There's really no one to challenge for the title yet. There's got to be a lot of work in from those athletes to be able to put themselves into challenger contention.
Yeah, I think there's some glaringly obvious guys like Sean DeLange and guys like Justin Smith coming back if he gets a win. I'd like to recycle Luke Michael back in, a young prospect, Saxon Delafield. There's a lot of guys that are Jose De Rocha. Any stage gets a W and we can put him in. Yeah. So there's lots of guys we can throw in there if Temba wants to keep active. I think after this fight, Temba's going to try and we're going to try and get him into the UFC or somewhere, that he can spread his wings and really put that mouth to the test. Hey, good for him. He believes himself. I back him. Great. Guys like Karam, he gets a win. I've got lots of guys to throw at him.
Absolutely.
It's going to be good. And hopefully gets a shot at the AFC title.
Well, after this, you would think that they would give him that shot.
No, they should. In fact, I hope I get to have a conversation with their president and kind of push him in that direction. Fingers crossed.
Well, there you hear it from the VP for Talent here at EFC. Graeme, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for allowing us into the PI. It's been really great being here. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you're going to join us on Monday night when we wrap up all of this action. A lot of announcements, a lot of sort of predictions being made by Graeme. We're going to have to check on Monday to see if any of those predictions have come true. Until Monday night, thanks to the team in the background. Protect yourselves at all times. We're out.